Hey there knitters, welcome to episode 25 of Knit Talk with a Tech Editor. I'm Megan of the Unapologetic Knitter and I'm a tech editor. Today we were supposed to have a conversation about short rows and neckline shaping. Please don't run away. I know a lot of you have been asking a lot of questions about this topic and I want to talk about it. But this week has not gone the way I had hoped it was going to go. I am obviously recording this video a few days before you see it on Wednesday. But we've had some little hiccups and work has not gone the way I had expected it to. So we are still going to be talking about short rows, but this is kind of an impromptu video. It required a little bit less preparation on my behalf. So I hope you will stick with me through this and still learn something. I promise we will talk about short rows and necklines next week. So here's what happened. So if you've been following along with me for a little while, you know that we adopted a little dog, Moo, last September. Actually, as of today's video, we are about 3 days away from his gotcha day. So we've had him for just a year, and he's only about a year and a half old. He had surgery on both of his knees back in June, and recovery has been long and it's sometimes very challenging, but at other times wonderfully rewarding and a lot of fun. Like this week, for example, we got to take Moo for his very first swimming lesson. And God love this dog. He followed me right into the water without any fear. Once he realized that the pool bottom was not where his feet were, he got a little panicked, but he did a great job. All that to say though, during that particular class, he received a lot of treats that he loves from the trainer, and I think it's given him a bit of an upset tummy. So today, while I was supposed to be recording the big full episode about the neckline shaping, he is on his pillow with a really upset tummy and we're having to kind of run in and outside with him on the regular. That's probably too much information, but I believe in being transparent with you and letting you know what's going on in our lives, which is also why I look so casual today. Normally I do a little bit more work to prepare for these videos, but life is what it is, and here we are. So today's conversation does still talk about short rows, and I'm going to read a comment that I received on last week's video when we talked about converting wrap and turn short rows into German short rows. Here's what the comment said. I have a burning question about putting some short rows near the bottom, not the ribbing, of a sweater to make the front hem a little longer than the back. I often shorten the back / lengthen the front on my sewn dress bodices. I want to do that on my sweaters, mostly just 1 inch on the front. Short rows was the only thing I could think of. Might you have advice on this? And yes, I do. So short rows are a really great way to, as we talked about last week, put a wedge or shaping into a garment over one portion of the garment only. And so for those of us who have breasts that push the front of our garment forward, it can often also therefore raise the front of the garment if there are no short rows used. And this is part and parcel with bust darts, which I talked a little bit about last week as well, that it's going to be a forthcoming video. So a really great way to compensate for the lift that we get from our chest being pushed out because of our breasts, we often get a shortening in the front of our garment. Short rows are an excellent way to take care of this. So you can do this simply by using bust darts, which we will cover in a video coming up in a couple of weeks. But I thought I would talk a little bit about how to lower the front hem so that you get kind of a scoop shape. And this is something that you can do to either compensate for your breasts pushing your garment longer or shorter because it sticks out farther in front of you, or you can use it as a design element. And I actually have a physical example of this because I knit myself a sweater this past March where I added a scoop shape to it. So on the left side of the screen, we have what I would think of as sort of a standard sweater without any short row shaping. You have a straight bottom hem, and that could be ribbing, it could be folded and seamed over, it's just a straight edge. On the right hand side, we have a curved bottom hem using short rows. This is an exaggerated version of what I think the commenter was asking for. This is more of a design element, but that's essentially what you're doing if you're going to be adding short rows in the front of your garment, whether it's as a design element or to accommodate for any rising of the front of the garment due to busts or your breasts pushing your garment forward. So if we're going to be looking at adding simple short rows to accommodate for a variation in length due to our chest being pushed forward, you're going to want to create kind of a, I think it's, what's the shape? An ellipse? Yeah, an ellipse. It's the circle that's been squished, so it's narrower at the edges and deeper at the center. If you are trying to create a decorative edge, you're going to want to use a wedge at the bottom of your garment. So since we're going to be covering bust darts in a future video, I'm not going to specifically cover how to do that today, but I will talk about how you can add a little bit of depth at the front of your sweater. And for the person who left the comment, this is an option you can absolutely use if you don't want to add it as bust darts. You can add it near the bottom of your sweater and make it the depth you need. So what you're going to want to do is create basically a wedge at the bottom of your sweater before you work the ribbing. The shape of the wedge should match the shape of the garment that you're trying to create. In this case, because we're trying to create a lower curved edge to the garment, you want to start wider at the hips or at the full length of the garment, and then narrow it down to the bottom so that your narrowest short rows are at the bottom where you want the curve to be. So here we've got a blown up example of the bottom hem of the sweater. We're going to be starting at the left edge as the screen is shown. This would be the right edge if you were actually holding the garment in your hand. You're going to work short row 1 from left where you see the number 8. That's actually the starting point of short row 1. You're going to knit all the way to the right across and end a few stitches from the end of your row where you see the number 1. That's the stopping point of short row 1. Immediately following short row 1, you're going to turn to the wrong side and work back across on the wrong side and stop at short row 2. Short row 2 is going to stop the same distance from the end of the row that short row 1 stopped. Using my sweater from earlier as an example, because I was knitting at such a large gauge, my short rows stop at 4 stitches from the end of the row and therefore decrease by 4 stitches each time. So short row 1, for example, knit to 4 stitches before the end of the row. Short row 2, when we worked back the opposite way, also stopped short 4 stitches from the end of the row. Short row 3, we're back on the right side again. We're going to be working from left to right across the screen. And now we're going to stop 4 stitches before the previous turning point. So the point that we turned on short row 1. And you're going to continue back and forth until you've worked the number of rows that you need to achieve your depth. For example, if I wanted to add, say, 1 inch of depth and my row gauge was let's say 16 rows over 4 inches, I would only need to work 4 rows to create the extra inch of depth for the bottom of my sweater. Okay, my friends, I know that was sort of a quick tutorial about short rows and how you can use them to shape your garment, whether it's a design or decorative element, or to accommodate very briefly for any vertical rise you get because you have a chest, breasts on your chest. Everybody has a chest. Next week, we are going to talk about the neckline short row shaping, I promise. Well, I shouldn't say promise, barring anything else terrible happening with my dog that takes way more time than I expected to. Thank you so much for being here this week. If you enjoyed today's video, impromptu as it was, I would appreciate it if you'd hit that like button and subscribe to my channel. And as I mentioned last week, tell a friend. It helps me help them on their knitting journey. Thank you again for joining me this week. I look forward to seeing you next week when we talk about necklines and short rows. And happy knitting, my friends.